Many organizations need to orchestrate and coordinate hundreds, if not thousands, of releases across many departments, each of which has its own way of working and its own level of release automation. To do this, you need a tool that helps you build a master pipeline across your company while still letting each team run their own releases at their own paces. Excel Release 5.0 gives you the power to manage relationships and dependencies among all of your releases. It lets you coordinate releases at the project level and see how they're connected to each other, so you can manage interconnected pipelines as a whole unit, making it easy to see when a delay in one pipeline will affect delivery for an entire business feature. For example, if you're in charge of a project that requires several development teams to make changes to different systems, you can set up a master release that controls modular sub-releases for each team or system. This makes it easier for different teams to follow their own workflows, while ensuring that you maintain control over and visibility into the entire pipeline. But that's not all. Excel Release is flexible and customizable, so you can use it to model any type of release process. For example, instead of a master release pipeline, you could create a simple release that automatically kicks off other pipelines, so your teams can work in parallel. You can even use Excel Release 5.0 to create a chain of releases that model a team's development sprints. No matter what your release pipelines look like, you'll get the benefit of Excel Release's automation support, integration with third-party tools, and reporting features.
It starts with templates, which are blueprints for your release pipelines. Modeling your pipelines as templates ensures that each release will follow a consistent set of steps, and it means that your processes are fully documented for auditing purposes. After you build a template, you'll create a release based on it each time you want to release your software. It's easy to create releases manually. Zebia Labs has a role-based security system that gives you fine-grained control over who in your organization can work with templates and releases. Releases can also be triggered by everyday actions, such as a commit to a source code or artifact repository, or it can even be created automatically according to a schedule. Templates and releases are made up of phases, which are groups of tasks. Tasks are things you're probably already doing in your release processes today. From manual tasks like checking off prerequisites and preparing communications, to work that can be automated like running builds, updating issue trackers or ITSM systems, or deploying software to environments. The Zebia Labs DevOps platform offers seamless integration between release orchestration and deployment automation, so it's easy to make software deployment a built-in part of your release flow.
Let's review the master template, which reflects a realistic software delivery scenario. Keep in mind that this is just one of many release patterns that can be modeled in Excel Release. A, B, C, and D represent planned work. E is a bug fix, and F is a feature request. These come up midway through the release. Finally, G is a hotfix that is needed quite close to the release's production delivery date. Each item requires development and QA work. So how can Excel Release handle these scenarios? The master template is similar to the major-minor release example that is provided with Excel Release. Again, it is one of many possibilities for modeling your release. As we walk through it, keep in mind that this is a template that will be adapted as the release becomes more defined. In fact, defining the release is a step in the template. The first phase is pre-development. You could also call this planning. This template is designed for an agile shop, so the pre-development phase involves scheduling a sprint planning meeting, setting sprint goals, and notifying stakeholders that a new sprint is starting. Next is development. During development, each feature or feature set will have its own sub-template running iteratively. We'll get to the details on that later, but for now, note that this is one sub-template that will be duplicated for each feature or feature set. The third phase is integration, where features are tested together for the first time. This also represents large-scale performance and stage testing. Finally, the production phase deploys the software to a production environment, conducts a smoke test to check the deployment, and notifies stakeholders that the sprint is complete. Now let's see it in action. The release manager starts the release, and XL Release sends a notification for the sprint planning meeting. Here, I'll add the sprint goals that were decided in the meeting. During the sprint, the development team will code for features A, B, C, and D. I'll add this in a comment. I'll also attach the minutes from the sprint planning meeting. Now I'm going to close the task because I need to add 4 features. I'm going to divide them into 2 feature sets, one for A and B, and one for C and D. I'll give each feature set its own sub-release and edit the title and comments for each one. Now I'll return to the task for defining the release and complete it. XL Release sends a notification to the stakeholders, then goes into the development QA phase and starts the sub-releases. These will run in the background. While waiting for the sub-releases to finish, let's look at the release data that has been accumulated so far. At this point in time, the feature AB sub-release and the master release are still in progress, but the feature CD sub-release is complete, as I can see by selecting the appropriate filter options on the Overview tab. Note that the filtering options include status, flags, owner, title, tags, and date ranges. The Pipeline tab shows releases that are in progress. The master release is in the Dev QA phase, and the feature AB sub-release is iterating through a third Dev QA cycle. After some time, the sub-releases finish. I update the build number, then I can go to the Features Complete gate to check off the condition boxes. I'm going to do this manually to indicate that the features are complete, but it could also be done automatically. After the gate task is closed, the release proceeds. Now the release is in the integration phase, in the deployment task. This deploys the software to the integration environment, where features are tested together for the first time. After the deployment is complete, the release moves on to integration tests. At this point in the scenario, we receive notification that features E and F have to be added to the release. I'll account for that by restarting the development QA phase. I'll select the phase and task, and choose to resume the phase later because I want to edit the release before kicking it off again. Here is the new phase, Dev QA2. I need to add a sub-release for the new features, E and F. Now I'm ready to resume the release by choosing the phase and task. The sub-release task starts and runs in the background. After some time passes, the development work is complete. The release admin can review the EF release, then complete the features gate for it in the main release. Again, I'll check them off, add a note, and complete the gate task. Now the release moves into the Integration 2 phase and deploys the application to the integration environment, including all 6 features, A through F. And it reaches the integration test task again. At this point, the software is almost ready to go to production, but we discover that hotfix G has to be applied to this release before it can go live. The same procedure applies. I go to Restart Phase, select a phase and task, and choose to resume later so I can edit the release first. The new phase is Dev QA3. I'll add a sub-release for hotfix G and then resume the release. Again, the sub-release starts in the background. After some time, the development and QA work are done. As the release manager, I can check the sub-release for the hotfix, then come back to the main release to complete the gate by checking off the condition to confirm that all features are ready. Finally, I'll deploy to the integration environment with all features, A through G, and perform integration testing. Now I'm ready to approve the release for production. XL Release moves to the production phase. After deployment to production is done, a quick smoke test confirms that it succeeded. Finally, XL Release notifies stakeholders that the sprint is complete. Now let's take a look at the sub-release for features A and B, which was submitted from the master release. There are columns for the development and QA phases, and some tasks in the development phase are already complete. The release is waiting on a manual task to start development. Note that I've added a restart marker that saves the task ID, so I can apply automation to the restart. Of course, you can always use the GUI to restart a phase, as I did in the master release, but in this case, we'll see how to automate it with a REST API call. At this point, I'll complete this manual task. The Jenkins job has failed, so after I've fixed it, I'll retry this task from XL Release instead of doing so from Jenkins. This ensures that XL Release keeps track of the failure reason and of the time required to finish the task. The time between the start task and the gate task represents the time that developers spend working, though without the details of the work being done. Between these two tasks, developers would independently invoke the self-service template, but the details won't be part of this release. We'll discuss the self-service template in a subsequent video. Now XL Release moves to the QA phase to provision an environment and deploy to it. Then I can see that automated testing has failed. This triggers XL Release to create a JIRA ticket with the restart task ID as a comment. When the assigned developer checks in code, he or she puts that task ID in the commit message, and a post-commit hook restarts the development stage. Now you can see that the cycle has restarted as Dev2 and QA2. I've established another restart marker for a subsequent restart if needed. I'll keep repeating this two-phase cycle until reaching a satisfactory conclusion. XL Release also gives release managers and operations teams visibility into releases. Let's look at the release calendar using the demo tag as a filter. On December 23rd, you can see the feature set sub-releases. Further down, you can see the master release extending to the end of the month. I can click on a day to show the release that is active or planned for that day, and then drill down into the release details. Or if I go back to the calendar view and click a release, I can see where it stands now and scroll left for its history and task timings. Let's go to the release dashboard. Again, if I filter on the demo tag to isolate this one release and its sub-releases, you can see the releases at risk and useful statistics on tasks and timings. Further down are the top 10s, 10 longest releases, 10 longest phases, 10 longest tasks, and 10 people most involved. Let's look at the release value stream. This is what the December 2015 release looks like when completed. The same information is available while the release is active. Scrolling right, you can see the different phases and tasks and their timings. XL Release visually indicates the different iterations involved between dev, QA, and integration for the additional features and hotfix that were added. This isn't just an exercise in tracking work. In addition to giving you full visibility into what is happening during a release, XL Release can show all of this information for teams after the release is over. You can see the types of reports that are generated, allowing you to understand things such as how often code has to be submitted to QA before QA was able to test it successfully. So I'm not just tracking my main release plan to get a monthly release from lower environments into production. I'm also able to track all of the associated activity that different teams are doing to meet their criteria. Zebia Labs is excited to announce the latest version of XL Release, which introduces enhanced visibility for your release pipelines. Often, the information that you need to manage releases is scattered across many different tools, so you don't have a clear view of what you're releasing and how your active releases are going. The new dashboards in XL Release version 5.0 are designed to bring this information together and provide a new level of visibility to everyone who has a stake in a release, from the CIO to risk management to the release manager or DevOps team. XL Release 5.0 gives your whole team unprecedented visibility into the features and fixes that you're releasing, before, during, and after your release is run. It also gives you insight into whether those features are working as expected once they're in production. And thanks to integration with third-party tools like Jira, Jenkins, and ServiceNow, you can automate even more of your processes and control your entire release pipeline from Excel Release. Every release now has its own configurable dashboard that can display your team's most important status indicators and metrics, such as the overall release progress, compliance and audit details, features delivered, issues found, and open tickets resolved. Dashboards also let you drill down into release details for further planning and analysis, even if the release hasn't started yet. Excel Release 5.0 also introduces a table view that makes it easier than ever to work with complicated, enterprise-scale releases. In Table View, you can filter release data so you only see the information that you need, see dependencies on other releases, and update release tasks with just a couple of clicks. Excel Release 5.0 brings enhanced visibility and automation, so you can orchestrate the most advanced release pipelines with ease. Visit zblabs.com to try Excel Release for free today.